The soft morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting a warm glow on the bed. Jungkook, who had been sleeping peacefully, frowned as a light touched his face. Irritated, he raised his hand to shield his eyes. "Mr. Sun, why are you disturbing me?" But the sunlight was continuing, and with a sigh he opened his eyes and sat up in bed, blinking away the rest of sleep. He glanced beside him, expecting to see you still sleeping. But the bed was empty, the sheets neatly folded on your side. His eyes narrowed in concern as he muttered to himself, "Where is Ryan?" He swung his legs over the side of the bed, quickly getting up to search for you. Jungkook made his way downstairs, only to meet his wife, who was in the kitchen. As he approached, he saw you standing by the stove, humming softly as he prepared his favorite breakfast. The aroma of pancakes and freshly brewed coffee filled the air, making his mouth water. He paused for a moment, watching you from the doorway. You hadn't noticed him yet, too focused on flipping pancakes and stirring the coffee. Jungkook smiled to himself, his heart swelling with affection. You were the reason he had learned to smile, something he rarely did before you came into his life. Quietly he gestured to the maids to leave, then nodded silently, slipping out of the kitchen without a word, leaving the two of you alone. Jungkook then moved closer, his steps silent as a cat standing just behind you. He leaned in and whispered softly near your ear, "Good morning, love." "Jungkook, how many times have I told you to not scare me like that?" You scolded, your voice mix of frustration and amusement. "You know, I flinch at sudden actions." He pouted playfully, lowering his head to your level and tugged at his earlobe in a mock apology. "Okay, okay, I'm sorry for scaring my princess," he said, his voice laced with a teasing tone. Despite yourself, a smile crept onto your face. It was impossible to stay mad at him for long, especially when he was like this. Jungkook's lips curled into a grin as well, his usual stoic expression melting away. The man who once didn't know how to smile had found joy in the simple act, all because of you. "Good morning, dear," you replied, your voice soft and a little shy. The way you said it made his heart skip a beat, and he couldn't help but smile even wider. Jungkook's eyes winked with mischief as he tilted his head slightly. "Where is my morning kiss?" he asked, his tone playful and demanding like a child asking for candy. Your eyes widened in surprise. "Jungkook, we are in the kitchen, not the bedroom. What if someone sees us?" you said, glancing around nervously. But Jungkook simply shrugged, a devilish grin spreading across his face. "I will take off their eyes if they do," he replied, closing his eyes and leaning in closer, his lips only inches from yours. "Now kiss me." You felt your heart race as lips hovered near your ears. The kitchen suddenly felt much smaller, the air thick with excitement. You looked around one last time, making sure no one was watching, your cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and excitement, but you leaned in, ready to give him the kiss he was so impatiently waiting for. Just as your lips were about to meet, the door to the kitchen swung open, and one of the guards stepped inside. "Sir," the guard began, but stopped abruptly as he realized what he had interrupted. His eyes widened and he quickly looked away, stuttering an apology. "I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean to interrupt." You jumped back, your face turning red with embarrassment. Jungkook's expression darkened as he turned to glare at the guard. His playful behavior was replaced with the cold, intimidating aura he was known for. "What is it?" he snapped, clearly annoyed at the interruption. The guard swallowed nervously, not daring to meet Jungkook's eyes. He stood nervously clearing his throat. "Sir, Hansu came to meet you." Jungkook let out a deep sigh of disappointment, clearly not wanting to leave you after the interrupted moment. His shoulders slumped slightly as he mumbled, "I don't want to leave you." You giggled softly and playfully nudged him in the arm. "Jungkook, it's not right. You should meet the person who came to see you." He winced like a child who didn't want to be told what to do, his lips curling in a small pout. "But I was about to kiss you." You shook your head with a fond smile, pushing him gently toward the door. "Go, silly. We can finish it later." Jungkook groaned but finally gave in, dragging his feet as he made his way toward the living room. fine, but only because you said so, he muttered, giving you one last glance before stepping out. You watched him go, chuckling to yourself. He might be a dangerous mafia leader to the world, but in front of you, he could be such a silly guy. Even though Jungkook was a dangerous mafia leader dealing with illegal matters, his loyalty and love for you were more. You were his everything, no matter how many enemies he had or how dark his world was. You were the one light he protected fiercely, and more than anything, he respected you deeply. As Jungkook entered the living room, his entire demeanor shifted instantly. The playful, loving husband you had just seen was gone, replaced by the cold, dangerous mafia boss everyone feared. The room seemed to darken as his presence filled it. Jungkook, still in his nightrobe, didn't seem to care about his attire. He walked towards the couch and sat down, pushing his long robe to the side with a confident flick. His expression was calm yet intense. As he lit a cigarette, the flame briefly illuminating his sharp features. Moments later, Hansu entered the room, holding a wedding card in his hand. He approached Jungkook cautiously, his polite smile not hiding the nervousness in his eyes. "Good morning, sir," he greeted, bowing slightly before handing the card to Jungkook. Jungkook took the card with one hand, eyeing it for a second before looking back at Hansu with a sharp, amused gaze. "So you disturbed my kiss with my wife just to invite me to your wedding?" he said. His voice was low and dangerous. Hansu's smile fluttered for a moment, unsure if Jungkook was serious or not. He stood frozen, unsure of how to respond, but then Jungkook let out a laugh, leaning back against the couch. "Relax, I'm kidding," he said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "Tomorrow is the big day, huh?" Hansu finally relaxed and nodded quickly. "Yes, sir, tomorrow is my wedding." Jungkook flicked his cigarette, nodding as if in deep thought. "Alright, I'll be there," he said casually, though his presence alone would be enough to make any event feel intense. "Thank you, sir," he said happily and bowed before leaving from there. As soon as Hansu was gone, Jungkook's playful mood faded and he turned to his right hand man John, who was waiting silently nearby. "What's the situation?" he asked, his voice sharp and dangerous. John stepped forward, his expression serious. "The president is causing trouble again with the weapons export. He is trying to tighten control." Jungkook's jaw clenched slightly as he exhaled more smoke, his eyes narrowing. "The president," he muttered, as if the name alone irritated him. "Let's catch up with that old man. I'm sure he's ready to meet heaven by now." There was no hesitation in his voice. It was clear that Jungkook was ready to handle things in his own ruthless way. He stood up gracefully, his robe flowing behind him as he moved. Before leaving the room, he handed his cigarette to one of guards, who crushed it in ashtray. The next morning you stood in front of the mirror, carefully adjusting the dress you had chosen for the day. It was a simple yet elegant outfit, something you felt comfortable in despite having more expensive dresses in your closet. As you reached back to fasten the necklace around your neck, you struggled with the teeny clasp, your fingers fumbling. Suddenly you felt two hands gently cover yours. "Let me help you, my dear wife." His deep voice whispered in your ear, sending a shiver down your spine. You looked up and smiled at his reflection in the mirror, seeing that he had just woke up. His hair was messy and his eyes were still slightly sleepy, but the way he looked at you made your heart flutter. "Thank you," he said softly, letting him take over the task. His fingers were surprisingly skillful as he hooked the necklace in place, his touch lasting on your skin. He didn't pull away immediately. Instead, he twirled you around to face him, his arms sliding around your waist. "Where are you going all dressed up?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity as he gazed down at you. You smiled, excitement bubbling up inside you. "I'm going to a friend's wedding. I'm excited because I will be meeting my college friends after 4 years. It's been so long since we all got together." Jungkook's expression softened as he listened, though his eyes flickered down to the dress you were wearing. He nodded approvingly, but then he raised an eyebrow slightly. "That sounds nice," he said before glancing at you again, this time with a hint of concern. "But are you going in this dress?" You looked down at your outfit, a bit puzzled. "Yes, isn't it good?" He smiled, but there was a hint of something in his eyes. "It's good," he agreed, "but you have more expensive ones in your closet." You chuckle softly, reaching up to brush a strand of hair from his face. It's okay, Jungkook. I don't need expensive clothes to be respected. My friends won't care what I'm wearing. They will just be happy to see me. Later that morning, the driver dropped you off at the venue that had been sent to your phone. As you stepped out of the car, you looked around, trying to find any signs of the wedding. The place seemed quiet with no banners or decorations announcing the bride and groom. You started to feel a bit uneasy, unsure if you were in the right place. Just as you were about to double check the address, you heard a familiar voice call out your name. Ryan? You turned around and saw Sana, your old benchmate from college, waving excitedly at you. Relief washed over you, and you couldn't help but smile as you hurried over to her. Sana, you said, pulling her into a tight hug. It felt so good to see a familiar face after so long. It's been ages since we last. Sana laughed, squeezing your back. I know, right? I was starting to think you would forget all about us. You pulled back, grinning at her. Never. I have missed you all so much. She smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling with the same energy you remembered from your college days. I have missed you too. I'm so glad you could make it today. We got so much to catch up on. You both stood there for a moment, just soaking in the joy of being reunited after so many years. The uncertainty you had felt earlier vanished, replaced by the comfort of being with an old friend. Come on, she said, linking her arm with yours. Let's go inside. The ceremony is about to start, and I want to introduce you to everyone. You nodded, feeling a sense of excitement built inside you. I can't wait. Together, you and Sana walked into the venue, chatting like no time had passed at all. She confirmed that this was indeed the right place, and you were nerve settled as entered the garden where your friends gathered. You and Sana entered the garden where a group of your old college friends had gathered. The air was filled with laughter and chatter, and the sight of familiar faces made you smile. It felt surreal to see everyone after so many years, as if time had paused for a moment just to bring you all together again. Sana led you over to the group, and as soon as they noticed you, they greeted you with warm smiles and hugs. The excitement of the reunion was visible, and for a moment it felt like you were all back in college, carefree and full of dreams. Ryan, Sana, it's so good to see you both, one of your friends said, pulling you into a tight hug. Me too, you replied, returning the hug with equal excitement. The happiness of being reunited with your old friends was overwhelming, and you couldn't stop smiling. As you were sipping the welcome juice, a figure approached the group. It was groom Mia, one of your former classmates. She had always been a bit distant back in college, and it seemed that hadn't changed. She looked around at the group, her eyes scanning each person before landing on you. She looked you up and down, a slight frown seizing her forehead. Who are you? I don't recognize you, she said, her tone dismissive, as if she couldn't be bothered to remember. You felt a sting of embarrassment at her words and the way she was scrutinizing you, but you kept your composure. You didn't want to let her rudeness affect you. With a calm voice, you replied, I'm Ryan, Mia. Don't you remember me? We used to have combined study sessions back in college. Mia's eyes widened slightly as if she was trying to recall a memory. Then, with a casual shrug, she said, Oh, Ryan, you, I almost forgot about you. For a moment, I thought you were part of the decorating team. A few of your friends let out awkward chuckles, not realizing how hurtful her words were. You could feel the color draining from your face, a mix of embarrassment and hurt rising within you. Sana, who was standing beside you, noticed and shot Mia a disapproving look, clearly feeling bad for you. That's okay, he said softly, trying to brush off the insult as you looked down at your drink. You didn't want to make a scene, especially not today. Sana leaned in close to you, her voice low but comforting. Relax, Wine, don't let her get to you. She is just proud of herself for marrying a rich guy. He nodded slightly, appreciating Sana's support, but the memory of Mia's words still hurting you. As the conversation continued, your friends started talking about their lives after college. They shared stories about their high-paying jobs, their experiences settling abroad, and of course their marriages to successful business and wealthy partners. I just got back from New York last month. One of your friends said with a smile, "My husband's business is booming there, and we have been so busy with all the new opportunities." Another friend chimed in, "We are planning to move to London next year. My husband's company is expanding, and it's such an exciting time for us." You listened to them with a polite smile, nodding along as they talked about their luxurious lives, but with each story you felt a growing sense of unease. You knew they would eventually ask about your life, and you weren't sure how to respond. The truth was, your life was far from ordinary, but it wasn't something you could easily explain. Finally, one of your friends turned to you, her eyes curious. "So, Wine, what about you? What's your husband like? You have been so quiet about it." How could you tell them the truth that your husband wasn't just any man but one of the most powerful and dangerous figures in the world? That beneath his loving exterior, he was a mafia leader who could bring entire empires to their knees? You hesitated, your mind racing for the right words. He is doing well," you said finally, your voice a bit shaky. "We are happy." Your friends nodded, but they seemed unsatisfied with your vague answer. "What does he do?" one of them pressed, clearly eager for more details. You swallowed hard, your heart pounding in your chest. "He works in business," you replied, keeping it general as possible. "He's very private about his work, so I don't talk about it much." Mia's words cut through the conversation like a knife. She glanced at you with a smug expression, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Leave it, girls. She must be feeling embarrassed to talk about her poor husband. He must be struggling to meet their basic needs. I mean, just look at her dress." Her words stung, but you remained silent, your face flushing with mix of anger and humiliation. You could hear the laughter around you, the mocking chuckles of your so-called friends, except for Sana and a few others who seemed uncomfortable with the situation. "It's okay, Wine. Don't worry. I will talk to my husband. We can find a decent job for your husband. Something that will help you both meet your basic needs." The laughter grew louder, and you felt as though you were shrinking under their gaze. "I thought you would be in a great position by now," another friend said, shaking her head. "You are always the smartest in our class. I never thought you would be living such a low life." You clenched your fists around the glass, you were holding the tension in your body, making it hard to breathe. Your mind raced with 1,000 responses, but you couldn't bring yourself to say anything. Instead, you squeezed the glass so tightly that your knuckles turned white. You wanted to scream to defend yourself and your husband, but the words wouldn't come out. Finally, unable to take it any longer, you muttered, "Excuse me," and turned on your heel, walking away from the group. The laughter continued behind you, the sound echoing in your ears. As you moved further away, you felt humiliated and angry. Senna followed you and tried to stop you, but you said you can't stay anymore with such narrow-minded people and was walking out. Your heart was pounding in your chest and you just wanted to be somewhere far away from the judgmental stares and cruel laughter. As you hurried through the garden, lost in your thoughts, you suddenly bumped with someone. The impact was strong enough to knock your purse out of your hand, and it fell to the ground with a soft thud. You quickly bent down to pick it up, but the person you bumped into was faster. "Wyan, ma'am?" a familiar voice said, and you looked up to see one of Jungkook's girls holding out your purse. Your heart skipped a beat, panic flashing through your mind. If a girl was here, that meant Jungkook is here. You thought, your mind racing. You quickly turned around, scanning the crowd, and there he was standing not too far away, his eyes already locked into you. "Wine?" His voice was firm and concerned as he walked over to you. "What are you doing here?" "I should ask that. What are you doing here?" you asked, your voice barely above a whisper. His expression softened slightly as he explained, "It's Hansu's wedding. He is one of my trusted men, so of course I came." Your eyes widened in realization. "Hansu, your chief informer?" you repeated, trying to process the information. He nodded, looking at you curiously. "Yes. So your friend is marrying him?" he guessed. You nodded, your thoughts still scattered. It was too much to take in, the insults from your friends, the sudden appearance of your husband, the connection between Hansu and Mia. Then, where are you leaving? Not attending marriage? You stood silently, as you didn't know what to answer. By seeing the tears at the corner of your eyes, he understood something was wrong. So he stepped closer to you and made you look into his eyes. Who insulted you? He asked, as if he heard. Jungkook noticed the whispers coming from your friends across the room. His sharp gaze caught their mocking smiles. He understood everything in an instant. Without saying a word, he reached behind you and you quickly unzipped your dress. The simple fabric transformed before everyone's eyes, unfolding into a stunning, expensive gown that shimmered with butterflies embroidery which was done by famous designer in the world. You gasped as the dress revealed its true form, and before you could react, Jungkook scooped you up in his arms. Jungkook, what are you doing? You whispered, feeling both surprised and embarrassed. He looked down at you with a soft smile, just making sure everyone understands who they are dealing with. He replied, his voice low but firm. As he carried you inside the venue, all eyes turned toward the two of you. The guests murmured in surprise, watching in awe as Jungkook walked confidently down the aisle. Mia and Hansel, who were standing on the stage, looked stunned. Mia's initial surprise quickly turned to shock as she recognized the dress you were wearing. It was one of the most expensive gowns in the world. Her confident smile dropped instantly, replaced by an expression of disbelief. You hesitated at first, but when you saw Mia's smile fade, a smirk formed in your lips. You could feel the envious stares of your friends who were now clearly regretting their earlier words. Hanzo, trying to maintain his composure, stepped forward and asked, Sir, is everything okay? Any problem? Jungkook nodded towards you and said calmly, her ankle got twisted. Hanzo immediately moved to help. Let me fix it, sir. He offered, carefully taking hold of your right ankle. With a quick, gentle twist, he set it back in place. Meanwhile, Jungkook whistled softly, catching Mia's attention. Take a good look, Mia, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Do you understand your position now? Under my wife's feet. It's done, sir, he said. Jungkook nodded, a small smirk playing on his lips. You shouldn't have done this on your wedding day, he commented. Hanzo shook his head, his loyalty clear. Nothing is more important than you, sir. You gave me this life and I'm happy to serve you. Good, he said simply. Then, turning back to the crowd, he held you close and posed for a few photographs with the newlyweds, maintaining his dominant presence. As he finished, you leaned in close to Mia and whispered in her ear, Don't judge anyone by their appearance, Mia. A small dress can turn into something beautiful. Learn to respect everyone. Hans is a good man and he deserves happiness. Thank you for watching.